Oh my gosh. So I am so excited this evening to be with my beautiful soul sister. She is a soul oracle and a delicious astrologer with such deep, deep insights. Her name is Kathi Hillenberg. You may know her as Magic Kathi. You will have seen her beautiful weekly astrology forecasts on Instagram and her fantastic podcast too. If you haven't, you need to check it out. There will be links in the notes below. But without further ado, let me introduce you to this beautiful woman who is going to take us on a magical journey into our own souls around healing and holing and why it is important to heal on the planet at this time at all. Hello, Kathi.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure every time we connect because we go into deep rabbit holes, into the universe, into our souls, and that's honestly the best topic for me to talk about anyways. I could talk about these things all day long, and I'm blessed enough to do that for a living now, to help souls all around the world. And yeah, I just love to shine a light on all of that. So let's dive into everything.
Let's dive in. I mean, I am a real fan of your work. I love the language that you use to describe the transits, and not just the transits, but the way in which you speak about astrology is in a very healing way. It's to call us forward. You know, astrology has very many different lineages and different departments. You know, if it was the University of Astrology, there would be so many different departments. I believe that you might be in the department of the soul or evolutionary astrology. And this is something I believe is having a bit of a renaissance right now in terms of the healing on the planet and people looking for tools to heal. But first of all, I'd love to invite you to tell us, or to kind of give us an insight into what you believe healing actually is, because we hear it all over the place. It's on Instagram memes, it's in our Facebook. Every teacher on the planet wants to tell us about healing. You know, there's books on shelves all over the place, and Amazon top bestsellers are all to do with self-healing, self-holing, self-help. What do you think healing is?
Honestly, obviously we all talk about healing, but I feel like the word in itself, and that brings me to why I love astrology and why I love the work that I do. The language that we use, especially the English language, is very coded and holds a certain vibration. Every word holds a vibration that is stored in our DNA as well, just as astrology is also stored in your DNA. But the thing with the language that we use is that it's the very thing that programs us. It's the very thing that conditions us. Even when you look at the wheel and you see, okay, the third house is when you learn language, when you get basically all of these rules by society, and that's when the coding happens. The way I see the coding, that is obviously embedded in the language that we use. And that brings me to my answer to healing. I don't like to use the word healing because it always feels like there's something broken, right? There's always some, so it's similar to the word, fixing. We have to fix this issue, we have to fix this problem, I have to fix. Oh, like, you are not wounded, you are, but you're also not. The thing that you are is you are disconnected. And so healing for me is connection. It's connection to your soul, it's remembrance. That's what really healing really is, because the coding that happens through language, through our parents and where we grew up, is really just that it's disconnecting us from our soul's origin, right? And that's when we feel lost, because we are lost, because we are disconnected from our soul, we are disconnected from source. And so what healing is for me is a remembrance of the universe inside of us, the soul inside of us, and the wholeness inside of us, really.
I love that. It's a remembrance. And I really love that idea. And it's certainly becoming more accepted now that we are not broken. We don't need to fix things, but we can remember. And I love that, we're remembering our soul's journey. We're remembering our soul's purpose and remembering that we are connected to the divine. We are the divine. We are source. How beautiful.
Yeah.
So if not healing, and if we are then remembering, what exactly are we remembering? Because my next kind of place to go was, what are we healing from? But if we're not healing from something, what are we doing when we are healing or remembering?
I would say we are remembering the trauma,
Right.
right? Which sounds very contradictory, because then there is a wound. Yes, there's always a trauma. There's always something that happens where we create stories around these events, and these stories are also energetic imprints in our system that disconnect us from love, right?
Yeah.
And so when we heal and remember, we remember the trauma, so we understand, oh, that's just a false narrative that I created in order to survive, right? And so I have to let go of that, or I want to let go of that, in order to liberate myself, in order to see life through a different lens again. Because, you know, even on my Instagram, I shared that the word trauma in German, I am of German origin, it's similar to the word dream in German, it's Traum, right? So it's this illusion that we live in because of the wounds or the trauma, the imprints that happened in our childhood. And the minute we take that away, we are able to see again. It's almost like you
Yeah.
wake up and you see the world through a completely new lens, and you're like, wow, I've never seen it in that way before. And that's really what it is, to wake up from this illusion, the Maya, as we also call it, that happens after we develop a lot of traumatic imprints or coding.
I love that. I really love that dream, and, you know, the illusion, and of course the disillusion, the disillusion of these stories. And I heard and fell into another word play this week as well, about destroy being de-story. So to destroy the story of this illusion, which I really found very delicious as well, around this kind of healing, remembering, and very much looking at this post-traumatic stress that we talk about a lot in developmental trauma, and changing that to post-traumatic stress response rather than trauma, so that we get to see that actually what we're doing in our stories is responding to a trauma rather than being the trauma. So I love that. I love that wordplay that you use, and that, you know, really gives us that new lens, like you said, like this new way of looking at the stories that we've created through meaning in our lives. And then disillusion, like dissolving, dissolving, you know, we could play with that all day, couldn't we?
I love word plays all day long. I even have a whole section again on my Instagram, like playing with words, abracadabra, right? Because that's how we take the weight and the coding off of the language that we use, right? When we see it from a different lens, like, or see it from a different perspective, and we see the coding in the word itself, and then we consciously can use different words, and that reprograms the water in our body, right? And we are 90% water, and the water stores the memory. So it's so important to really pay attention to the language that we use, how we speak to ourselves, and that obviously starts in the mind, right? Your mental hard drive. I see it, you know, the whole human experience as a lot like computer analogies. I have an Aquarian ruled brain, so everything is for me software, hard drive. Like, we need to reprogram all of that, and, you know, boot your system again, reload. Because that's what we're here for. You can code your own hologram around you if you know how to code. If you don't know how to code, then it will be tricky, and you will always run other people's programs on your system.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. Yes. And kind of this takes us, I suppose, to that coding of astrology. You know, we both love astrology. We both love reading the codes and the patterns that we come and we're imprinted with. And that is like our baseline game. How do we then move up a level from that game? How do we, you know, dissolve those codes and rewrite those codes for ourselves? So talk to us a little bit about how you see astrology and how you use astrology in terms of this remembrance and healing.
First of all, I want to bring another like analogy or bridge to astrology with dissolving. That's very Neptune, right?
Yeah.
And that's also the connection to the divine.
Yes.
So the surrendering to the divine, right, is also what dissolves all the problems and the illusion of the Maya, and to reconnect. But
and
yeah,
connect us, our sun and moon.
Yeah, sun and moon. Sun moon Neptune conjunction. Of course, we shine a light on that from the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
Sun and moon. But what I was going to say, yes. So the way I see astrology, which the birth chart is a snapshot of the sky when you come into this planet, and I live off the belief that you decide that, right? From a soul level, you just want to leverage the energy that is in the sky, because the minute you pop into this world, you carry that energy in your DNA, and you can unlock the remembrance, obviously through transits or through looking at your chart and realizing, oh, that's what I came for, right?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do here.
Yeah. And really feel into it. And I think, we both know, working with people in this kind of arena, the excitement that we get to see, what they've lived through in conjunction with their chart, and where they get to go with what we can see in there. So how do you use astrology then for your clients to be able to start to move into that remembrance and into the integration of that remembrance as well?
So the way my brain works, when I look at the chart, I instantly get the story. Like I have a movie in my head. I have different timelines that I see, but obviously always wanting to connect people with the highest timeline. And so in a session, the first few minutes I really spent with assessing, where is this person right now? How far off course are we right now? And how do I get this person on their own program again, right? So how many programs are in the system right now that are distorted? What do we need to clear? That's really what I see in a session. And obviously that's all background stuff that works in my head. But I really sit with the human, and I have a date between human and soul, right? And I am the translator, and basically help the human remember, well, your soul wants you to know this, 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 and this. And then I ask questions specifically to understand, okay, how connected is this person already with the soul? And then we look at the chart and look at the story that the chart tells us. And usually that kicks in the remembrance in the human, like, oh yes, I've always wanted to do that. Oh yes, I always wanted to go there, but I never had the courage, or I never thought that was possible for me, right? And all of that, these limitations are, of course, coding and programming that we then want to clear. So that's how I use astrology. And obviously I very much focus on evolutionary astrology. So it's really about the evolution of the soul. What's the path, right? Where are the obstacles and blockages, but also the room for growth in your human experience? Because we all sign up for lessons as well, right? We all have Saturn in the chart. We all have Pluto. We all want to transform something. We all want to learn something and need to mature. So there are always amazing parts in the chart and charts that are really heavy, but it's the polarity. It's through that we learn.
So why do you think then, particularly evolutionary astrology, is having such a renaissance? Now, I suppose that's a bit of a paradoxical word, because to be honest, evolutionary astrology is relatively new in terms of the lineage of astrology, but astrology itself is having this renaissance. It's becoming a language that is well known, that is used, that is popular. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I definitely feel like it's because of the time that we live in right now, where we realize, oh wait, this human life and experience was not just meant for being a 9-to-5 sort of like slave. I thought it was, right? And so we are able to unplug from that program, that this is just the way it is, right? And obviously if we believe or we live in that program, then the only thing that astrology can provide for us would be, my husband, or finances, or what kind of 9-to-5 job can I get, or what is about my health. And all of these things we can answer with astrology, and I can certainly do that too, but it doesn't excite me, because I'm here for the bigger questions. Like, what is the purpose? What is the mission? Why do we even do this? It's not all fun and games here to be a human, and some days it just feels like shit. So we need to understand and remember the bigger picture of it, right? To not get lost. And because a lot of people right now with the world and everything that is shifting are realizing, wait, I signed up to be alive during this critical time in history for a reason. Maybe there's something bigger that I wanted to do than just to be and to observe and to watch the whole show, right? Maybe there's something else. So I also believe that the cosmos, with that Saturn Pluto conjunction and all, Neptune and Pisces, Chiron and Aries, there are so many activations right now.
Mhm.
Also Uranus and Taurus, where the outer planets, right? And the outer planets is basically what I focus on in evolutionary astrology too. The outer planets are saying, hey, this is a wake-up call. You've had so much time now focusing on the inner little world, your inner little bubble. Let's see the bigger picture of not just your own human life and experience as this avatar, but also the many incarnations that you had and how this all fits into your overall soul experience, which is also the experience of you helping source to expand.
Gosh, that's so delicious. Delicious. It is. It feels really like I deeply believe that too, that we're living in all of these timelines that we call past lives, that they're all kind of simultaneously happening, and yet we're feeling all of that energy at the same time, and we're clearing timelines at the same time as we're living in timelines. And that can be a really difficult thing to kind of get the human brain around. And yet we have these tools like astrology that can give us very simply, actually, step by step, what to do, how to be, and how to claim that courage that you said. People they feel familiar once you start talking to them about their chart. Like, oh gosh, yeah. Or wow, I really want to be able to do that, but I don't know how, or I haven't got the courage. I feel, and I don't know if you feel this as well, that the astrologer is the bridge that can take those people across to their courage and kind of show them what is possible in this lifetime now, and give them the inspiration and also the map that will put them on course to kind of reach what it is that they chose to come here to do, to be, and to ignite. And that also very, very many people on the planet at the moment are coming in, like you said, at this time to do some really deep work. If we were kind of reading astrology 100 years ago, it might have been quite mundane, whereas now there's a lot of real awakening souls here to do very important work on the planet. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to, I always see Pluto as the essence, the soul in the chart, right? And when we'll see which Pluto generations are being activated right now, it's the Pluto and Scorpio generation for sure, which what are these people all about? Exposing all the shadows, right? Alchemizing all of that so we can have better values in the world. But then it's also the Pluto and Libra generation, all about relationships and how we meet other humans, which is a critical part when we talk about the quality of life here on Earth. Because, we have a relationship to everything, including life, including our bodies, including ourselves. And what kind of relationship is that? And where are the programs that keep us locked in relationships that are, not uplifting the quality of our life, right? And in essence, what Source really wants us all to have is a beautiful life experience here. And so what is disconnecting us from that? Well, it's the programming, it's the matrix, it's all of that, right? And of course, we are dismantling all of that on a global scale right now. So no wonder it's so much deeper right now. And no wonder there are a lot of people doing that intense work, because we need to, work on all of that, right? Because we also have to see that we live in a very, very privileged situation compared to our parents, our ancestors, that really had to focus on survival, that had to focus on, having money, resources, all things, right? And we are so fortunate to have access to education in the internet.
Absolutely.
People, like connections. We are very, very privileged, and that's why we have the comfort to sit at home and do the shadow work, right?
I know. Stay at home and Google, what is this transit? Oh,
Yeah.
what does the sun in my first house mean?
Yes.
And it's almost laughable because, like you said, we are so indulgent in a
Yeah.
way. You know, we're indulging into our own shadow work. We're indulging into this transmutation of the energy. And we couldn't have done this at any other time in history. This is birthing evolutionarily exactly at the right time. You know, this, everything is perfect and everything is for us. And also what I'm seeing as well, and what very much came through me with my ceremonies I was just speaking to you before we hit record, is that we don't see, or we, first of all, we see a lot about this 5D consciousness.
Yes.
You know, come into alignment with unconditional love, come into alignment with this high vibe tribe, be here now, you know, this real kind of glitter and gold spirituality. And it's opposed to 3D, which is, you know, the old mundane programming. Yet we don't hear an awful lot about 4D. We don't hear a lot about the bridge in between.
I'll just skip that. No, just kidding.
Yeah, we'll just jump straight to 5D and be really, really glittery and happy on my unicorn. And really, I feel like the astrologers and other modalities that are the bridge are taking people into 4D, which is a bit, it's the shadow work, it's the Pluto integration work, it's the lifting up of this programming and looking at it and then actively, consciously saying, I don't want that programming anymore. I'm now going to consciously reprogram myself and watch myself slip up and watch myself pick myself back up again. And to do this in relationship with each other, in community with each other. That's kind of the energy I'm getting. What do you feel about that 3D, 4D, 5D sort of bridge?
I feel like the whole, it's so misunderstood too, because it, you know, we are in a 3D world and that won't change. Like if you want that to change, you just have to transcend, which means that you have to leave your physical body and you die, right? Or you bypass your physical body and you're constantly escaping, which we see a lot in the spiritual community too, right? Where it's just like, I'm not in 3D, I'm just like exiting out, and they're all spacey and just like meditating all day, but not really being part of this human experience. And we all signed up to have a physical body, right? And so our job, quote unquote, is to hold more light and a higher vibration in that physical body. That's the job. It's not to escape or to go somewhere. It's to sit with your body, go deep into it. And I always like to see the body as a pyramid, right? And that pyramid has so much ancient wisdom. And the minute you enter this pyramid, you know that you don't know everything about this pyramid, but you're present with the pyramid and you see what you can unlock. And you see what the universe, yeah, the universe as well, but the pyramid has to tell you, right? And to sit in that pyramid, to meditate with it, and to ask it questions, like to cultivate a relationship with it, which is then ultimately also the relationship you have with the universe and source. And I feel like when you do that, you don't even stress about in which vibration you are currently vibrating, because you're everything, right? And you understand that in the morning when you wake up, you focus on this 3D perspective, and when you go sleep, you focus on something else. And that death is an illusion, and that this whole categorization and labeling of stuff, source doesn't do that, because we are all one. We are all existing in parallel timelines all the time, right?
It's so juicy. That is just so juicy, isn't it? That the body is like this permit that you get to sit in it. You can't transcend 3D without literally leaving this planet, because we are in this third dimensional reality. And yet, you know, we're hearing a lot about these other dimensions that we get to live in here. Would you say that that is that kind of spiritual bypassing that we're hearing a lot about, you know, that not being in the body is not really being in the work, in the healing, in the remembering?
Yes, especially, everyone who has that tendency also wants to ask themselves, like, am I actually judging 3D? Am I labeling it? Am I so for like moving away from it, being not a part of it? Like, and that's, of course, that's separation.
Yes. Yeah.
That's separation, which is not source, right? So you can obviously prefer to be in a higher vibration, but you can also exist in 3D in your higher vibration. It doesn't bother you.
So beautiful. And I feel like this is kind of the next place that the masses are going to be educated into moving into, which
Mm-hmm.
is, don't judge the 3D. We live here. This is what we signed up for. Yet we can live in this higher heart vibration. We can change our perception, like you said. We can shift the lens in which we look at our life. We can shift the lens in which we use the language of our reality, and that the future is actually being created by the language that we are using internally and externally. And so, what really are kind of the next steps for us then, given that, we've got this body, we live in this 3D world, we've got all of this education now available to us, as you said, in this privileged world. We're even more privileged that we've got the time and the comfort, essentially, in relation to our ancestors, to look this stuff up and to take time to do this work, and to make memes about this stuff. Our ancestors must be laughing their heads off that we've got time to make astro memes.
Yes.
So what's the next step for us? What do you see as the next step?
Well, it's. I feel like we already live in the next step in a way where we see that, we are already coexisting next to each other. There are people that are very, I mean, maybe even in 2D, like we're literally in survival mode, right? There are people that are still in survival mode, that are still in very, very, from our perspective in this modern world, like that don't have food, right? That
Yeah.
don't, like, that literally feel like I'm gonna not survive until tomorrow. So there's still people starving. It's still happening, right? But then there's the exact opposite spectrum of also how a human experience can look like, which is very much connected to source, connected to I'm the creator of my reality, and how all of that works. And I feel like it's just realizing that it all can happen at the same time on this planet, which is interesting because it brings us back to what we said earlier. You have the same experiences simultaneously right now too.
Mm.
And to understand that the world that you perceive around you is just a mirror of what you are actually also living through. So the minute you perceive something in your hologram, right, could be a kid starving in Africa, that's also you somewhere else in another dimension, right? Because otherwise you couldn't perceive it. And the same is true if you see a millionaire, that's also you, because otherwise you couldn't perceive it. And for us, really the next step is to awaken to the fact that everything around you is a mirror, is a reflection, and to then sit with yourself and ask yourself, why is this mirror presenting itself right now? Because when we understand that we live in this mirrorverse, in this hologram, we wouldn't attack the outside world, because how could you attack yourself, right? And if you feel called to attack yourself, then of course you want to sit with yourself even more. And I think when we really, really integrate that, that's when we come to wholeness and to oneness. And then we don't even have to stress about the next steps, because there is no linear timeline. Brings us back to this whole concept of what is time. It's all an illusion.
Yeah, it is a bit mind bending,
I know.
all of these conversations are mind bending. And with Jupiter now in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, I certainly feel anyway that this renaissance is going to just keep growing, that we are going to be bringing these more spiritual, more source-led ideas into the mundane, into the everyday, that people are going to be using tools like astrology to make decisions that they wouldn't normally make in their mundane life. Particularly from next year, once kind of Jupiter comes back and then goes forward again into Pisces, I feel like that's definitely just going to be the norm, like even maybe on a governmental level. But certainly in terms of the integration, so for people that are listening and like, wow, this is a bit new, or, you know, how do I get my head around that we're living in multiple timelines, and yet everything's a mirror, and how do I sit with myself? How do we do this work? What would you offer or would you offer a framework, a small framework that people could get started with?
Yes, I think what just came to me is like the best piece of advice that I have is to invite people to be as observant about themselves and their own behaviors and patterns towards themselves as they are to the outside world.
Mm.
And then see how the world changes. Like if you spend literally the same energy that you spend like observing the world and what's happening around to yourself, that's when everything will unlock for you. And it's also what is meditation? It's, for me anyways, it's first of all observing the thoughts, observing the sensations in the body, observing. And without labeling or judging, like just witnessing, okay, this is happening right now. And obviously that's a brilliant practice also for if you observe something in the external world. Oh, there's this kind of news, that kind of regulation. Okay, it's there, right? You don't have to attach to it. You don't have to make it mean something about your life. Same is true when you observe yourself. Like really to step into that observer mode without bypassing, right? Because I know sometimes you can just observe emotions. It's not mine, I'm just observing. No. You just also want to feel it. And of course that gets tricky, right? But yeah, then you will realize and observe the patterns, you know, and you can start at very simple with just observing synchronicities in your life. Repetitive numbers, repetitive themes, observing how the universe is speaking to you, because that's how the universe speaks to you, or your soul speaks to you, right? To remind you, or to paying attention to something. One day you see a name, for example, 3 times in a row, you're like, okay, there's something about this name. Or if you constantly meet people with the same birthday, there's something about that, right? So really starting small with meeting the universe halfway.
I like that. And, you know, so many of us kind of moved into our more magical existence by observing those numbers, by observing how we were being spoken to by the universe. And, you know, many of us call it by different names. It can be angels, you know, it can be guides, it can be ancestors, source, universe, God, goddess, higher self, whatever you want to call it. But there is definitely this energy that kind of, as you said, meeting it halfway, playing this co-creation game. And once you observe how that energy is speaking with you, you can then go back and speak with it in the same sort of language. That's really lovely and really interesting to put that in there. So start observing more on yourself or internally, in as much energy as you would observe the outside world. I like that. I really like that. So what else can we do? If somebody is brand new to astrology, or brand new to even learning about healing or some kind of trauma energy, because they're big themes at the moment that we're seeing being popularized. What do they do next? Kind of where do they go? What would you advise them to maybe read or look into?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, you can always have an astrology reading around these themes, which I think is very helpful to remember a lot of the trauma and the imprints. And also, which I'm a big advocate for, to make sense of your pain, right? Because most of the time we don't want to face it, and we just feel like it's too much, because we feel like it doesn't make sense, right? Or it's proof that there's something wrong with us. It's proof that we've done something wrong and it's our karma. I hate the word karma because, again, it's very coded. There's never like such thing as, you know, source wants to punish you for whatever. So yeah, to really, really have a deep dive with your journey. Like, what are your wounds? Where do you get triggered? And then really with everything that hits you, why? What is the root? And when you ask why for everything, that's when you get your freedom, because then you don't have to judge, or you don't have to make it mean something about someone else, or there's something wrong with you. Understanding, no, wait a second, this is also my higher self creating this situation for me in order to learn and grow, right? I've not done something wrong. It's not the other person. It's a learning experience. So, hey, what is the lesson here? Let me just integrate that, because that's liberation. So otherwise, you just run away from your triggers all day long, and you will meet bigger triggers with other people. You cannot run away from what you signed up for, which is why I think it's so beautiful to look at your astrology chart and to approach your lessons firsthand instead of letting them hit you, right? Especially eclipse season, it's like major, like, hey, do you remember that these are the lessons? You kind of like shuffled them under the rug, but now they're here. It's eclipse season.
Oh my gosh, we have to come to that. But before we move to eclipse season, because that is so big and so juicy and so vibrant right now, I'm loving that. It's like, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. And I think not many of us ask ourselves why. And once you start doing this work, why becomes your favorite question, because like you said, we get triggered, and we usually get triggered by the same sort of thing over and over again. And we can tell because, you know, if you ask our friends, ask anybody's friend, they'll be able to tell you, oh, they get really happy with this, or they get really peed off with that. Or, you know, it's obvious usually externally to other people. One of my teachers said, it's like we all walk around in a goldfish bowl. So everyone can see into the goldfish bowl apart from us. We're just swimming around in the goldfish bowl. So everyone can see our shit apart from us. And so this asking why and these triggers and not running away from it, I really like that. And I might even add that, you know, we get to ask our friends, our closest, like, what do you see about me that you believe, you know, could help me open up? What are your observations? And to try and move through that, not taking it personally, but like you said, being inquisitive, being curious, being open. Let's just see what's in there, see what the root is. I really, really love that, Kathi.
Yeah.
We've got some good pointers there for people to kind of start on that journey, the synchronicities, the whys, the softness, and that they came here to do or to be something, to clear something at this time, and to be part of the collective as well as an individual going through this soul journey. So with that in mind, you beautiful soul oracle, we are in the middle, slap bang in the middle of eclipse season.
Yes.
What are you seeing and feeling for us at this Sagittarius South Node total supermoon lunar eclipse?
Could it get more like big and expansive? Especially now that Jupiter just moved into Pisces, everything is bigger and more galactic. I see that it's the biggest invitation to finally surrender. And to surrender all the old stories, South Node and Sag.
Yeah.
To surrender everything that you thought would be the truth. And to really open yourself up to a new journey, to a new road, to a new destiny, to a new chapter, to writing a new story, to a new avatar, right? To all of that. And it's not easy because we don't even know. And that's the thing. It's like Pisces invites us to sit in the void. So you don't know. You just have to say, okay, I'm going to surrender that, but I don't know what's next. Because that's when we open the portal to magic, right? And if we hold on too tight, the universe has a hard time or has to interfere in a very harsh way, which is when these eclipses can hit us really hard, right? Yeah. But if we just are not attached to anything, any outcome, and obviously eclipse is not just now on this, lunar eclipse, it's also a portal that is open for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And it certainly has a little bit like started already in December 2020,
Mm-hmm.
because we had an eclipse in Sagittarius already, and it was right around the Saturn Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Because Jupiter just moved into Pisces now, so
Yeah.
there's definitely connection, because also Saturn just stationed retrograde in
Yeah.
Aquarius, so there are a lot of synchronicities even in that chart. I have a whole podcast on it, because it also brings us back to 2012, because in 2012 around we had an eclipse in November 2012, and during that eclipse Neptune just entered Pisces.
Mm,
Neptune was where Jupiter is right now.
mm,
Interesting, right? It all brings us back to that whole Piscean realm, that Piscean field of surrendering and
yeah.
of reconnecting to our soul and source, and dissolving as well.
It's so beautiful, isn't it? Because when I remember when we all kind of walked over that 2012 threshold, and we were all like, oh, it's the Mayan New Year, this the end of the calendar. Where are we going now? What's going to happen? It's the end of the world. And actually now we've kind of walked through, these energies, and it's no longer 2012, it's 2021, it's the 2 and the 1 switched around, and we've got these eclipses that are now beautifully aligned, like you said, from that 2012 moment, but also from December to now, and Jupiter being at 0 Aquarius, now then being at 0 Pisces, and this beautiful magical language that we get to speak and interpret and see. We can now see from 2012 it was actually the beginning of a calendar. It was the very birthing of this this new quantum energy that we are all living in now. The speed at which the world closed down with coronavirus, the speed of which we can have these conversations now on Zoom, and it's become so normal. The artificial intelligence that we're seeing being created, all sorts of different things that we can't even fathom in terms of biological advances as well. And yet we're only starting. And I love how you said, this Sag South Node, the disillusion of the stories of what we thought was the truth.
In all aspects, even how the world works, how we are, what we are as humans, all like, and of course on top of that, what we see in the world. And it's only it's the start, really, right? Because with Jupiter in Pisces, these illusions, the disillusionment, like all of that, where it feels like, for me anyways, like the whole world will have a plant medicine experience, where it's just like, what is real, what is not real, where am I, what am I, what is happening, right?
And certainly, as I said, I've just come from ceremony. That was one of the things that I really felt like, if we could all experience that even just once, so that everyone got this higher heart opening and really understood that what we see is not what's real, and what is real anyway. And
it's like, what I took away from my plant medicine ceremonies was that, and I even want to get a tattoo, life is a ceremony.
yes.
And it's just a matter of, do you experience a bad trip because you were not prepared, because you just like head into heels, like you were mindfully going into that, or did you prepare yourself? And do you really celebrate it as a ceremony, and you have the most divine blissful experience because you learn and you trust and you surrender? If you don't surrender, you have a bad trip. And that's exactly what you see with a lot of humans.
Yes.
They have a bad trip. They literally live a bad trip right now.
And I think, a lot of humans don't realize that they are the source, that they are God, that they are the one that creates their experience. Even from, like we said right at the beginning of this, coming in and choosing the energy of their birth chart, choosing the energy of their timelines, who they're going to be in relationship with, how they're going to spend that time in that relationship, and knowing that they can shift that as and when they wish, through the coding, through the languaging, through being present in the body, through understanding the breath, And through asking these questions, you're saying, why is this happening to me? And also with a context of the universe is good and great, because it is you, it wants the best for you. And so when we judge it to be anything other, we're separating ourselves. And that separation itself brings us into a lower vibration, or at least a vibration that is not love and oneness, wholeness, and completeness.
Yes.
Oh, delicious. So after we have this eclipse, Kathi, we move to the North Node in Gemini, and we have this solar eclipse. What are you feeling about that 2 week, the way that we're going to be feeling in that kind of 2 week portal, that real activation time?
It obviously depends on how well you do your homework, as always, right? So do you surrender and you open yourself up to a new story? And I really see it, and I know it's such a buzz phrase that we've heard a lot of people talk about. It's a crossroads. But it really is. You have two options: the old way, the new way. And maybe there's even more options for the new way. So you might not even know how to decide, right? But then trusting that your intuition, which is also Sag ruled, right, drives the boat, drives the ship, with also Jupiter there. So, and again, if you hold too tightly on your old story, you won't be open, and you won't even be an energetic match to that new life, right? So that's really what I see. It's a lot of people shifting into a completely different vibration, and then they become energetic match to new options in their life, new possibilities. And that can be overwhelming, because all of a sudden all of these doors are opening, and you're like, fuck, like what? Like now I have like analysis paralysis. I don't know which road to take, right? But trusting that you will always end up in the right one. You always will end up exactly where you need to be. So to also experience cosmic play and cosmic fun again, just try out this option, try out this option. You can always go back, right?
I love that. And that is the freedom I feel like on this axis between Sag and Gemini. It's a real playful axis. You know, yes, we've got that heavy truth of Sag, the pontification, but also we've got Gemini, all these different perceptions, these different perspectives, these different ways of being, chitty chatty. And as you said, it rules that third house, which is where we get our coding, where we get our communication from. And so to kind of like wrap up, I mean, I could carry on talking forever with you, but to kind of give us kind of like this kind of closure into this circle. You know, why is it important for us to heal and to remember at this time in history, her story, whatever story? You know, why is it important now?
Because you're not just liberating yourself, you're also liberating humanity by living the example of how this human experience can really look like. Because when we talk about living in 5D, it's really just how do you embody it? How do you live in example? How do you show people the alternative way of living? Because most people are stuck in their fear because they don't see any other option. They don't see that they could build a business. They don't see that they could use their own gifts. They don't even know what kind of gifts are out there, what's even possible. And so by showing them an example, it brings me back full circle to what I said earlier. You are a mirror for them, because it's inside of them too. So especially for us, you know, more older souls than have been here for many lifetimes, it's our responsibility to live as an example, because that's freeing, right? It's this whole concept of, you know, a baby, right, learns from the mother, of course, by what she says, right, but more so, what is she modeling? That gives the baby the courage to also try that out, or to adapt the habits, right?
I love that. I love that. It's not just ourselves that we're liberating, it's humanity. And we do that by demonstration. We do that by walking this walk. And as you said earlier, you know, we are light and our bodies are light. And in order to get to enlightenment, in order to get to this remembrance, we need to be more light. And to be more light, we get to integrate the shadow. And to integrate the shadow is this remembering, this healing. And by doing that, we get to be the mirror for other people. We get to show them what's possible. We get to be that light. And that is really beautiful. And there's so many people on the planet right now really, really doing that for us, you know, and shining their light, as cliche as it sounds.
Yes.
Shining their light so that we can see how to do the next steps. And I love that you are part of that too. I love that, you know, you are shining your light and teaching astrology, giving astrology readings, showing people, you know, this soul oracle, showing people their own personal journey from where they chose to come in and what they get to do here now on this planet. And I love that. Of course I do. Soul sister, it's something I do too.
Yes.
And we're like, this is so cool. We get to live our best lives whilst we're actually really doing what we came here to do.
Right? Like when we were younger, we were craving for conversations like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we get to do it on a platform, honey.
Yeah. It's amazing. And people even listen and are mind blown, you know? It's like heaven on earth is already here. Like, what is going on?
It really is. And that is a beautiful way to close. Heaven on earth is really here. You've just got to choose to see it.
Oh,
it's
yes.
So gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. Kathi, is there anything else you would love to share with the audience?
Just no. I feel like your closure is perfect. It's all about perception. And that brings us to the Gemini, you know, shift your perception. And like just wear different glasses, change what you see every single day, right? On your Instagram feed, in your day-to-day life, the people, the habits. It's just about that, switching things up, pattern interrupts. That's what gets you out of the stuckness and out of the program. It's all autopilot, right? The program runs on our autopilot, right? But taking your power back means taking responsibility for the programs that you run in your system every single day. The morning you wake up, always asking, is this still serving me? Is it not serving me? Right? And then spring cleaning everything.
Yeah, spring clean the mind. I got another beautiful play on words there as well as you were speaking, this remind, you know, reprogram the mind, remind yourself every day of who you are, where you want to go, what it is you want to create, and ensure that you are reprogramming that mind every day. And I love that, what you're seeing.
Thank God we have a Mercury retrograde coming up, right?
Yay! Perfect reminding.
And that's just like, you know, another thing, the universe is already telling us that, because the planet that is retrograde the most is Mercury, because we need the most like reprogramming in the mind.
And it's in its home sign. Hello.
Yes. And
close to the North Node.
People, can you see how the universe is speaking to us?
I think some people might think we're a little bit crazy because we can see, but others are like, teach me. For
us, it's like so obvious. Like, how can you not see it? But, you know.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, for your beauty. I love your t-shirt. Show everyone your t-shirt, your journey.
Yes, it's a journey.
Yay, I love it.
It's a journey, and it's a scarab as well, right? And I also have, speaking about Jupiter,
You've got some fabulous tattoos. I think we might have to have you back at some point, just sharing your tattoos and
Merkaba as well.
Oh, and you've got a little Merkaba there. You've got a little Merkaba. Yay. Beautiful. Kathi, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, your heart, your energy. You are a soul sister. And I know that you are traveling tomorrow. I'm sending you lots and lots of love and peace and joy and safe travels.
Thank you.